Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Heat Wave. 32 teams in 32 days. Every single fantasy relevant player in the world will be broken down for the upcoming season. Today, we will be focusing on the Arizona Cardinals and finishing off the NFC West. I am your host, the Fantasy Plug, Tim Petropoulos, editor-in-chief of BrotoFantasy.com and the Fantasy Football by Broto app. I am joined by my brother, the true throw value king and director of operation at Broto, Jason. The Dynasty Don is also joining us, if you were wondering. The Fantasy Encyclopedia himself, lead writer at Broto, Mr. Matt Ward, and Santiago Casanova, the genius of fantasy, Broto lead data analyst and developer of the Fantasy Football by Broto app. Speaking of the app, download the Fantasy Football by Broto app today for free and get every single tool you need to become your own expert and dominate fantasy football. Every single stat you use today can be found on the app, where there is fantasy player cards, which is basically a very compact fantasy player profile that gives you single thing you need to know about that player. Fantasy player grades, a Broto exclusive. Usage charts, start-sit tools, who to draft tool, player comps, consistency charts, game logs, coaching tendencies, articles, podcasts, rankings, waivers, and advanced stats including true throw value, true target value, true performance value, adjusted air yards, which you'll be learning more about today, and true matchup rankings. The app is free right now because of our patrons over at patreon.com. They are the ones that support the app. They keep the lights on. Join now to support the show, the app, and join the best community in the world. For as little as $3 a month, you get extras like extra waiver wire shows per week, access to Broto leagues. Does your league suck? This will not. Access to one of the most unique leagues that you're ever going to play in if you're a patron, and we're going to be unveiling that shortly. Proven DFS cash game optimizers, access to cheat sheets, private team consultations, and you know, I say this a lot, but I really mean it. The best community in the world, the Discord, the Broto fam over on the Discord. If you enjoy the show, if you enjoy the app, please consider joining. Your contributions go a long way. Today, we're jumping into the Cardinals. For their offensive outlook, Cliff Kingsbury is fresh off a 5-year extension in his 4th season. As always, he's the offensive coordinator, but he does have offensive assistant Jerry Sullivan, which I found interesting when I looked into him. He's been 78 years young. He's been coaching in the NFL since 1992 and coaching since 1971. All right, so in case you were wondering about Mr. Jerry Sullivan. Last year, 7th in points per game. They ran 45.6% of the time, middle of the pack, and something that's a little not talked about because the names on the offensive line, like Rodney Hudson, like Will Hernandez, like these guys that you recognize their names, those guys aren't necessarily still in their prime. Right, Justin Pugh, right? These guys are not in their prime anymore, and they've taken a step back. So their offensive line going into the season by PFF ranked 25th. And when you have a quarterback that's under 6 foot, that might be an issue. They made some additions, though. Wide receiver Hollywood Brown, who's going to be thrust into the number 1 role while Deandre Hopkins serves a 6-game suspension. Right guard Will Hernandez that I mentioned, and running back Daryl Williams to be a pass-catching back. The rookies that they drafted, tight end Trey McBride, and usually I don't mention this, but I think Keontae Ingram, a 6th-round rookie, has a maybe outside chance to possibly play, maybe, if James Conner gets hurt. So I've said his name. And subtractions, of course, running back Chase Edmonds and wide receiver Christian Kirk. So we'll go into the quarterbacks because at the moment, while we're talking, Kyla Murray's contract is in the news, and everyone wants to talk about his independent study clause. I want to talk about the result of the independent study clause because in this contract, if you don't know what I'm talking about, Kyla Murray has you have to study at least 4 independent hours a day, and you're not allowed to
burst your bubble. They removed it.
They removed it. Oh,
and it was a week, I think. It was 4 hours a week. It was light work.
4 hours a week, which in all honesty is like ridiculously minimal to even have it in a contract.
Right. Well, I'm gonna say even though they removed it, the stench remains. Fair. It's because this shows that they don't believe. It's a very immature organization, I feel like. And Steve Keim has got a 5-year extension. They just gave a 5-year extension to Cliff Kingsbury. They just gave an extension to Kyla Murray. So they're kind of banking on this core of people to take them to the next level. It just seems like a pretty immature operation that's going on right now. Like they had a clause in there that Kyla Murray couldn't play video games for an allotted amount of time as well. Like, ugh. But anyway, as we know, when Matt's on the show, it's K1, equals QB1 because of all, well, you know what I mean, but all the potential
Yeah.
that he has, no matter what, Kyla Murray, if he stays healthy, is a top 5 option as a fantasy quarterback. So how are we feeling about Kyla Murray this year behind this offensive line and in this weird offseason that we haven't seen from him before?
Like, look, it's so difficult to deny Kyler Murray's upside because it's tangibly one of the highest upsides of any quarterback in the NFL. He can rush like Lamar Jackson. He can put passing output out like Josh Allen, and he's just a phenomenal football player. He's absolutely electric to watch. And yeah, K1 is QB1. I'm obviously those rankings have shifted a little bit coming into 2022 with, offensive changes, knowing that D-Hop isn't going to be there. He's not going to have 2 supercharged weapons until later in the season. And by that time, he's, you said it, man. One of my biggest concerns is the offensive line. And that's just it, is how bad that offensive line kind of looks coming to this season. And knowing that Kyler has been banged up in the past, and he doesn't necessarily produce at the top of his ceiling when he is. But man, like the kid is just incredible. Like I don't really know what else you want me to say. He was top 10 in every passing metric you can imagine. Air yards, deep ball attempts, throws on the money, true throw value. And we know he's a phenomenal rusher, but that is also has kind of been his downside. He got injured off of a big hit 2 years in a row now after rolling out of the pocket. And yeah, he's a little undersized, but I think Kyler Murray's ceiling is a top 3 quarterback, top 2 quarterback. He can finish as the QB1 overall if he plays 16 games healthy. The question is can he do that? That's really it. I don't think you should have any concerns drafting Kyler because his ADP is outside of the top 5 and he has a top 2 ceiling.
Yeah, it's hard to argue with that. Even with all the bullshit that's surrounding him.
If I was still on the train of saying draft him as the first quarterback off the board, like ignore the Mahomes hype of last season, that was a big part of the reasoning. But if I was, I don't suggest that risk, but you're at QB9, there is nobody in that range that has QB1 overall upside not named Trey Lance.
Jason, how you? Let's get it. The quarterbacks. I don't think. Do you want to share something, or did he?
No, I was gonna make a joke. I was gonna say I feel like once it gets past 10 o'clock Eastern time, the Canadian comes out of Matt a little bit more. He let out a few oats on that. It was very nice.
Yeah, I mean it does. It does.
Let's go over to. Well, Cass, I see you. Let's go over to the next one. Running back. Cass, one of the better calls of the year last year was your James Conner call. This guy, every time he appeared on a podcast, every time he screamed to anyone who would listen, draft James Conner. And if you did, you loved it last year. This year, he's going in the 3rd round ish. Injury, always a concern with him. No more Chase Edmonds on board. Daryl Williams comes in. I think Daryl Williams is an interesting piece as a Chase Edmonds type. I think you can project that he fills Chase Edmonds' role, and I don't think Chase Edmonds has proven to be that much of a better player than Daryl Williams, where you can't project like a very similar outcome. So I think that he's being slept on a little bit as outside PPR type of. If you need 8 to 11 points type of dude can give you a big week if he scores. I think that that's being slept on. How are we feeling about the running back situation in AZ?
Yeah, Tim, I agree with you, man. I'm a little bit concerned about taking James Conner where he's going. And like right now he's running back 17, which actually seems like super palatable when you look at it. But when you look at where he's going for you to be able to take him, who's drafted around that range, like he'll be drafted in the 2nd round in some leagues. His ADP is in the 3rd round right now. So even though he's running back 17, it sounds like you'd be drafting him later, but you're not. People draft running backs early. And I'm a little bit concerned. Like you said, Daryl Williams is a decent pass catching back. They paid to bring him in. He had 47 receptions last year. And James Conner, He had 5 receptions in the first 8 games last year. 5. After that, he had 28. So he definitely picked it up at the end of the year. But that also lined up
What
with
happened in
Chase
those?
Edmonds being out.
Who wasn't the quarterback in those games?
And Kyla Murray being out.
Colt McCoy.
Yes.
That's exactly why he was getting those receptions.
The games when he did what people want him to do, it wasn't the Cardinals offense we know and are projecting. And that's my concern with James Conner, because if you look at what he did at the end of the season, he ended with 752 rushing yards. And it wasn't for lack of touches. It was the 15 touchdowns he had that carried the day. So are we predicting that James Conner is going to score 15 more touchdowns? Because also if you look at Kyla Murray, he went from 800 rushing yards and 11 touchdowns to 423 yards and 5 touchdowns. Because, as Matt mentioned, Colt McCoy at the quarterback a few games. Kyla Murray looked a little bit hesitant to run at points last season because of the injury. And he, like Matt pointed out, isn't the guy who checks down to running backs. Kyla Murray exceeded 35 rushing yards 5 of the last 6 games last year. He started to pick up where he left off. Honestly, James Conner does have some injury issues as well. He's played at least 10 games every year, but he never plays 16. I'm concerned. If you're drafting James Conner in the 3rd round, you're banking on at least 12 rushing touchdowns again. And I don't know if I want to take that chance.
I hate that pick, James Conner in the 3rd round. It's like one of my biggest fades is this year.
It's a ceiling pick.
Part of the reason that we were so, or Cass specifically was so correct, it was the cost. Is Chase Edmonds had a higher ADP than James Conner last season, and it was just like, what are we doing here? And both of them had very late round, like dead zone running back ADPs. So now he is back to that Pittsburgh ceiling, and something Jason just said it. Like, I don't like drafting players at their ceiling, and that's kind of seems like what we're doing with Conner. I still like him as a player, and RB17, again, it seems palatable. It seems like that's a good cost, but considering how fast that, RB2 zone flies in the opening rounds, it's, a little steeper than you would think.
Yo, Cass, you want to defend your boy?
Nah, I mean, I'm cool with it. They're not wrong. They're not wrong.
I mean, if Cass is out, then it's
I'm not necessarily out, but I think RB16 is a little bit ceiling E, so don't draft him there. If he drops 1 round, 2 rounds, smash that shit. But otherwise, just last year he was such a big buy for me because of his ADP, and he was being grossly undervalued. Not the case this year. He's being probably aptly valued, but that's not how you draft. You don't draft for apt value. You want that upside, right? So nothing to defend here, unfortunately.
All right, so let's get into something that we'll defend all day: the Fantasy Football by Broto app. Today, one of the coolest features, in my opinion, of the Fantasy Football by Broto app is the adjusted air yards, or what do we call it? True air yards. Sorry, excuse me. True air yards.
Yeah.
So what True Air Yards does is it takes away the BS of air yards. So if there's a Hail Mary at the end of a quarter and you throw it up and the intended target was the throw is nowhere near them, they get those 50 yards of air yards, and it really skews the numbers. So what Cass did was he found the algorithmic way to get rid of those throws. And this is an adjusted air yards to show you what their actual true air yards were on actual attempts that were catchable and were actually meant for them. So without any further ado, Cass, take us through this package. The stat, I mean.
Right. So, people love to quote air yards as a good thing, right? Oh, so-and-so player had so many air yards. They're bound to break out, but they forget that those air yards could be wasteful, like Tim said. So we multiply the air yards by the completion probability of each pass to get true total air yards. And as you can see by the top players, this is something that it's very indicative of of production, right? So you have Justin Jefferson, DJ Moore, Cooper Kupp, and even like DJ Moore underperformed by his true total air yards, right? He's between Jefferson and Kupp. That's insane. So he's someone I'm very interested in next season. I think this is one of the better, more tangible stats we put out because it really takes a bad stat and makes it good. We made it good.
And it says the realized and unrealized air yards, and to know that Justin Jefferson led the league in unrealized air yards is absolutely
That's
fucking
insane.
ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous.
I don't know if he led the league, though.
Oh,
just-
sorry. My
No,
it was sorted by
his
total.
true air yards. He did lead the league in true air yards, though. Shout out to the True Value Olympics.
Facts. All right, let's get into these wide
He was
receivers.
third in unrealized, by the way.
Third.
Still insane.
DJ Moore was first,
Insanity,
as I was saying.
insanity.
Yeah, DJ was first.
Bro, insanity. All right,
Right.
so let's get into these wide receivers. Hopkins going to miss some time. Going to miss 6
games.
weeks. You have Hollywood Brown currently out, but slots to be that number one receiver coming in. AJ Green had a decent year last year, respectable year.
Phenomenal year.
Yeah. So with that being said, how are we looking at these players that are going to be beat out by Andy Isabella for sure?
By who? By Rondale Moore?
By Andy Isabella, UMass great, big pal from UMass, Andy Isabella. But no, I'm glad you mentioned AJ Green because I think he's a very good value right now, especially since we're not going to have DeAndre Hopkins for 6 weeks. I know he's 33. I know that, but he's being drafted at wide receiver 87 when he was 56 in points per game, and will be the de facto number 2/3 for at least the first few weeks of the season. And in the predicted touchdown versus actual touchdown study I've mentioned a couple times in the past, he was predicted for 7 touchdowns and only had 3. So that's something to keep in mind. Like he left some points on the table, perhaps. So
Guys.
as a wide receiver, what?
We're talking about AJ Green right now.
Yes, he's a value.
AJ Green.
I'm saying he's a
AJ
value, yes.
Green.
Wide receiver 87 ADP, AJ Green.
Yeah, it's because he's gonna carry a cane onto the field with him, dude.
I'm okay with that.
Relax.
I'm okay with that.
As the resident 33-year-old,
He's a super good player. He's a very good pick in the later rounds, bro. Wide receiver 87 as the number 2 wide receiver.
He's gonna beat that for sure.
With
You know what's
touchdowns
like
on the
crazy,
table. I'm just
bro?
saying he's a value. I'm not saying draft him in the first round, but
No, I know he's gonna beat that for sure.
AJ
But
was
what's the upside? A potential flex play every few weeks?
yeah, with your last pick.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
That's
I'd
why
rather
I
use
think-
it on a
that's
That's
why
a
you-
good upside.
yeah, that's why people come to the heat wave, baby.
That's good
yeah,
upside.
yeah, I'm
Somebody
giving
that
him
you
the
can actually
deep,
put in your
deep
lineup
dive.
every week with your last
So let me-
pick.
People are not
Like, what
drafting.
is wrong with that?
People have your mentality saying
So
Man,
let me ask you a question.
Top 5 in scrimmage yards over expected last season.
Whoa, that was unexpected. Let's
Yeah.
get into
There you go.
So the guys that you're actually gonna have to spend some capital on, right? Marquis Brown. How much of a boost to his ADP do you think this 6 games of him being the alpha gives him?
I mean, his ADP is pretty low for I think what that
It's
represents.
insane.
He's wide receiver 23 right now, catching passes from Kyler, and as the wide receiver 1 while the Hopkins is out. I think he's a big value because he's coming from a low pass offense in the Ravens, but he still pulled a 25% target share. So if you translate that to the Cardinals, and as a wide receiver 1, he's golden, bro. He was like, I think he's a very good pick right now. I do believe because the suspension is going to kill D-Hop, who wasn't even very efficient last season.
I agree.
I legitimately
Matt
think
agrees
Hollywood's
as
going to
well.
finish in. Yeah. Like Hollywood's going to finish ahead of Hopkins in points per game, even when they come back. I don't even need to save that for bold takes because I think that's like a pretty fair outcome. His value right now is ridiculous. I
Yeah,
would draft Hollywood
he's
in
a
the
good
top
pick.
15 receivers, man. Like
He's
straight
very
up,
good.
he's going to be a top 15 receiver for the first half of the season, almost guaranteed. And then afterwards, he's still going to like Mark Andrews was the real wide receiver 1. Right. And look at what Hollywood did next to him. Like,
Right.
so they don't have like if DeAndre Hopkins is the alpha, then Hollywood can still command 25% of Kyler's targets in a pass happy offense that's probably going to score more than the Ravens did last season without Lamar Jackson.
So then how are you treating DeAndre Hopkins then? When is the earliest that you would pull the trigger on like stashing him? Because a lot of people think, oh, you stash him and you have yourself DeAndre Hopkins when he gets back. But DeAndre Hopkins.
Do you though?
Yeah, exactly. Because this Cardinals offense is kind of, I don't know, man. Like it's kind of bleh. Because DeAndre Hopkins just lines up on the outside in the same spot all the time and runs the same route constantly.
It's because Cliff Kingsbury isn't a damn genius child, man. All these damn coaches, Cliff Kingsbury, Matt Rule.
Yeah, if he was, Rondale would have already gotten 100 touches.
Oh, they know so much, so good at college football. Give them the entire reins, and they don't do shit. Sean McVay is
that good in college either,
Sean
man.
McVay is the only. Yeah, he wasn't. This guy had Patrick Mahomes.
He had Patrick
Mahomes. He could only
Mahomes.
win 6 games.
Like everyone thinks
Crazy.
these guys from college are going to be the next Sean McVay whiz kid. Sean McVay didn't come from college, guys.
Yeah.
Just because he's young doesn't mean he was a college coach first. This
McVay
guy
came
grew
from
up in
one
the
of
John
craziest
Gruden tree.
Coaching trees out. Exactly. Yeah. Crazy
So-
coaching
Jay
tree.
Gruden. Jay Gruden.
Well, I mean,
Jay's
that's
younger
not
than John.
that wasn't the peak of it, but yeah.
The
that coaching tree
Shanahan,
goes
Gruden.
deep.
What
Exactly.
if I told you that the
coaching
Shanahan
tree.
coaching tree is actually the Jay Gruden coaching tree? What if I told you that?
One of them. Okay,
Well, one of them won a Super Bowl and had been coaching for longer, so that's not possible.
Yes, but sometimes the fruit outdoes the seed.
It's not a good one.
I think
that was actually kind of a good
it was.
analogy.
I thought it was.
But man, you can't bring me on a Cardinals heat wave and not talk about Rondale Moore.
Let's do it. Tell us all about.
Cast.
Well. Yes, I do like
May I?
Rondale Moore. I do like Rondale Moore. I
Really?
gotta be honest, because especially because like the suspension changes things a lot, right? Because he's gonna be. I don't know, man. He's if do we think he is better than Christian Kirk? That's
Yes.
the question. Okay,
Maybe.
Matt
The
says
answer is
yes. Matt says
Christian
yes.
Kirk is not good, so yes.
So there you go. That's gonna be his role pretty much. So if we assume in the
Right.
first few weeks, Marquis Brown takes the alpha role, Hopkins, then AJ Green jumps into the number 2 role. Then he's Rondale Moore is gonna be picking up the Christian Kirk / AJ Green work last season, and it was not bad work. Like it was still productive for fantasy. And if Matt says, and we trust Matt, that he is a good player, I'm inclined to give him a shot on my team. I'm still like very uncertain on what his range of outcomes is. I think he could be really good or really, really bad and just make you regret that pick. Personally, but I do think he's worth a flyer.
To be honest, Rondale Moore wasn't even in my radar. He's one of these guys that I'm not really treating like if I can get him on the last pick with some upside, like cool. But
Yeah, I'm not
Matt-
reaching. That's for
yeah,
sure.
I'm
I think
not.
he has
You
a-
know,
I think
You don't
he
need
has
to
a
reach.
massive amount of tangible upside. Exactly. His price is incredibly palpable. You don't need to reach. Exactly. He's somebody that I'm targeting with those really late round picks. It depends on how many guys you have on your bench, but if you're in like a standard start 11 or whatever, and you have 5 bench spots, Rondale Moore is going to be on my redraft rosters, like 100% in any league that has like that many roster spots. And that's not even a deep league. That's just standard. So, I mean, one of the things that I think is incredibly overlooked as well is that there is no real pass catching back there. They brought Daryl Williams in. Okay, but Ronald Moore has like the greatest weighted freshman breakout of all time in the history of college football. Like in a really tough conference on a team that was stacked with a bunch of wide receivers that ended up making the NFL that he outproduced at 17 years old. Like I refuse to believe that this guy's not good at football. And he's
if you look at where
filling a
he's
role that is clearly lost with Christian Kirk gone. And we don't even need to talk about vacated targets. Like that is just he's the slot receiver now. He is the slot receiver in Arizona. Whatever targets he earns will be on his own volition, but he has a guaranteed role.
yeah.
And people have been punching the drum for Christian Kirk for years in that slot role in Arizona. And Christian Kirk is a giant to-do. Like his middle name is Dadu, Christian Dadu Kirk. Somehow the Jaguars got worse with Urban Meyer out the door because they decided to pay Mr. Dadu. So, yeah, Rondell Moore is much better than Christian Kirk. And now he's going to have that role. And if you look at who he's being drafted around, Christian Watson, he's on the pup. DJ Chark, please,
He's
on
on the
Detroit.
Lions.
Come on. Jamison Williams, another Detroit receiver who's not healthy.
Not going to play for 10 weeks.
Khalil
right.
Herbert, just straight
Guys,
up
I
handcuff.
just want to put this out there. You've officially talked me into Rondell Moore.
I really think he's an awesome value, man.
Yeah. You talked me into it. Not
And
gonna lie.
and I let's kind of levy the wake of water of excitement here, and I think Cass is right. It's a coin flip play, but at that cost, that's a pretty awesome coin flip.
What about DeAndre Hopkins? Where are you taking him? What how bad? Like, he wasn't great. He hasn't been great. He's been, like I said, running the same route. We kind of skipped over him. We can't skip over him. He's one of the big names right now. I think his ADP is around the 7th round. Would you take a chance there?
I would, yeah, 7th, late 8th round, sure, I guess.
Cass, what do you think? Would you take a chance on him?
Yeah.
It's man, no, because he's going around wide receiver 32 right now. Like, just baseline, no. He's going wide receiver 32. He was wide receiver 20 in points per game last season, and if you're getting that points per game output with a 6-game suspension, no, I'm not taking a chance
Cass.
on ADP right now. No.
Yeah, I agree. I think that I'm going to let someone else play that game. Let's go over to the tight ends. Zach Ertz, you thought his career was over, got re-signed, then has a massive resurgence, and then gets re-signed again. They add Trey McBride to the room. That's probably more of a dynasty play than anything else. How do you feel about Zach Ertz this year?
I feel great. I feel pretty good about most of these cheap tight ends this year, to be honest. I don't really know why Zach Ertz is flying under the radar as somebody that's completely washed up when he had the season that he did in Arizona last year. And man, Cliff Kingsbury and Kyler sure do love tight ends, because Max Williams was a top 10 tight end for the 6 weeks that he was healthy before the Ertz trade. So I think 16 weeks of Zach Ertz at tight end 12 value in ADP is a smash play. I mean, he was tight end 5 in points per game. Why wouldn't we draft Zach Ertz in this offense?
Amen. Unless someone has something else to say about
it's
Zach
really that
Ertz,
simple.
let's get into these bold predictions. I'm going to start with my first bold prediction. James Conner is my first bold prediction, and I think that James Conner finishes outside the top 24. I did it. I said it. All right, Cass, you're up next.
I'm with the negativity always.
I know. Cass,
I'm bringing
Cass,
the
you're up.
positivity this time. So I'm saying Marquis Brown, top 12 wide receiver.
Oh,
Love it.
Spicy.
I
I
love
love it. Jason, you're up.
Yeah, you guys took both of mine.
Nice.
Those are mine too. So I'll just go with Marquis Brown, top 10. Suck it, Cass.
Oh,
Ooh,
And
extra spice.
Kyler Murray has more rushing touchdowns than James Conner.
All right, and
That would
Matt,
well, then that would mean that my bold prediction of the equation supreme would absolutely be true, and that's K1's QB1.
all right, fellas, you can find us all on Twitter. Go ahead, let's do a round call. Let's go a round. What do you call it?
All right, well,
round of
I'm in the
applause.
box.
Yeah.
So
Go ahead.
you can find me on Twitter and all social media at PsychWardFF.
You can find me at Broto FF. Tim, Cass,
Broto FF Casanova.
Jason,
Broto FF Jason.
and you can find me at Broto FF. I mean, you can find us all at BrotoFantasy.com and FF by Broto app. Jason, bro, this is your last heat wave, correct? You're out after this?
Probably. Yeah.
Yeah, it was nice.
Oh,
It was
that's been
nice.
so much fun.
The YouTube algorithm's gonna love it, but we're gonna hate it. All right. Later, guys.
Later.
See ya.